Today on Public Eye News, 2 killed and 10 wounded in a nightclub shooting in Iowa, and animal sanctuaries in Wisconsin take precautions against bird flu.
Later, Ava Sahoyan will have your weather, and Michael Cuddy will have your sports update. Hi, I'm Caden Minus.
And I'm Madeline Plattenberg, and this is Public Eye News. A jury acquitted 2 men of all charges in a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, but were unable to reach verdicts against the 2 alleged leaders. The trial's results were announced on the 5th day of deliberations. Daniel Harris and Brandon Caserta were found not guilty of conspiracy, while Harris was also acquitted of charges related to explosives and a gun. The jury was unable to reach verdicts for Adam Fox and Barry Croft Jr., meaning the government can put them on trial for 2 conspiracy charges. Croft faces a separate explosives charge, and both will remain in custody. And hundreds joined a protest march in Grand Rapids on Saturday that followed Monday's shooting death of 26-year-old Patrick Leoya, who was fatally shot by a Western Michigan police officer. Marchers chanted, "Show the video and we want the world to know," to push Grand Rapids police to release body and dash camera video of the shooting. Leoya's father said through an interpreter that the world needs to know the truth. People need to fight for justice for Patrick. Grand Rapids Police Chief Eric Winstrom said Friday that he intended to release the video in the coming week while protecting the integrity of the investigation in the interest of justice and accountability.
And zoos and animal sanctuaries in Wisconsin are taking precautions against the avian bird flu. Tours have been limited, aviaries have been closed, and other safety measures have been taken to protect birds against the highly contagious disease. Heartland Farm Sanctuary in Verona has canceled public and private tours and placed their large variety of birds in quarantine. And Milwaukee County Zoo's aviary is temporarily closed to protect their birds. The avian flu was initially detected in Wisconsin in a Jefferson County poultry farm and is believed to have come from wild birds as they migrate from the south. And a shooting inside a Cedar Rapids, Iowa nightclub early Sunday has left a man and a woman dead, as well as 10 more wounded. Investigators believe that 2 men entered the Taboo nightclub and lounge before 1:30 a.m. Sunday and opened fire. Officers were already on the scene for a previous incident and helped treat the wounded. The gunmen likely escaped as the crowd rushed out of the nightclub, and no arrests have been reported. Police have been unable to determine a motive, but believe that one of the victims may have been a target. And don't change that channel, because we'll be back with your weather and national news.
I knew that this is a way to cure cancer. I knew that that was a way. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let that just lay around.
What if nothing we thought was right?
The skepticism was widespread. Jim experienced it probably every day. Part of Jim's success is the fact that he doesn't care that he's not following convention.
I think any great big disruptive change is going to take some single-mindedness.
Jim Allison, Breakthrough.
Tonight at 10 on WNMU-TV.
Welcome back to Public Eye News. I'm Ava Sahoyan here with the weather for the day. Taking a look behind me at NMU's campus, it finally looks like spring, so make sure to get outside and enjoy the sun today. Looking across the Upper Peninsula, we've got a mix of partly cloudy skies and high winds. Starting in Marquette, it is 52 degrees. Hohen is 48. Ironwood is 49. Iron Mountain, 54. Menominee, 57. Escanaba is 55. Looking over in Manistee, it is 51 degrees, and in Sault Ste. Marie, it is also 51 degrees. Right now in Marquette, it is 52 degrees out, mostly sunny with high winds out of the west at 20 miles per hour, and a barometric pressure of 29.62 inches and rising. Looking into tonight, we're going to see some clear skies, a low of 34 degrees, and winds out of the west-southwest at 11 miles per hour. Tomorrow, it's going to be partly cloudy with a high of 49, a low of 39, and winds out of the south-southeast at 10 miles per hour. Now it's looking to later this week. Starting on Wednesday, it is going to be 45 degrees, a low of 39 and partly cloudy. Thursday, also partly cloudy, a high of 42, a low of 30. On Friday, we're going to see a little more clouds, a high of 35 and a low of 27. And up next, national news.
Thank you, Ava, for that weather update. Now getting into our national news. President Joe Biden is nominating a new Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives ATV director. The White House confirmed that Biden is to announce the nomination of Steve Dettelbach, who served as a U.S. attorney in Ohio from 2009 to 2016 during a Monday afternoon event. Dettelbach's administration unveiled a formal rule to rein in ghost guns, which are privately made firearms without serial numbers that have increasingly popped up at crime scenes. And 2 families with transgender teens and 2 physicians sue the state over Alabama to overturn the transgender treatment ban. This is a law that makes it a crime for doctors to treat trans youth under 19 with puberty blockers or hormones to help affirm their gender identity. The lawsuit was filed in federal court 3 days after Republican Governor Kay Ivey signed the measure into law on Friday. The plaintiffs are known as Roe and Doe in the court filing to protect the children's identities. And Ukraine has warned citizens in eastern Ukraine to flee ahead of a renewed Russian invasion of that part of the country. Russia has pulled its forces out from northern Ukraine and is redirecting them to the east. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
Satellite images over the weekend showed a convoy of Russian vehicles 8 miles long heading to eastern Ukraine.
The Russians are regrouping, they're refitting, and they're refocusing out in the east where they will try to make progress.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told CBS's Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes that his country needs even more help and weapons as soon as possible to stop Russian attacks.
They have to supply weapons to Ukraine as if they were defending themselves and their own people. They need to understand this. If they don't speed up, it will be very hard for us to hold on against this pressure.
President Biden's national security advisor told CBS News that the U.S. is looking at giving new weapon systems to Ukrainian forces that would require some training outside of the country.
We're also looking to source weapon systems from allies and partners that the Ukrainians already know how to use.
Jake Sullivan also said the U.S. is actively looking to return U.S. diplomats to Ukraine. President Biden is also continuing his diplomatic efforts, speaking virtually with India's Prime Minister Modi Monday morning.
The United States and India are going to continue our close consultation on how to manage the destabilizing effects of this Russian war.
India has remained neutral, refusing to condemn Russia in a recent UN vote. The country also continues to buy Russian oil. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
As the strict COVID lockdown in China drags on, anger is boiling over onto the streets. CBS's Tina Krause is in London with more on the growing unrest.
This man in Shanghai is showing he's had enough of the COVID lockdown. In a furious rant caught on camera, he says, the government is driving ordinary people to revolt. There is no way for me to live. While countries around the world are lifting pandemic restrictions, China is sticking to its zero COVID strategy of tackling outbreaks with mandatory isolation and mass testing. Shanghai has enforced some of the most rigid rules since the virus emerged in Wuhan in 2019. 25 million residents have been forced to stay put, not even allowed to walk their dogs. The only canines permitted on city streets are robots, broadcasting tips on how to avoid infection. Under growing pressure to ease the lockdown, which has left many people without enough food, the government said Monday residents in neighborhoods with the fewest infections will soon be able to leave their homes. But scenes like this of people screaming from their windows show an end to the strict COVID controls can't come soon enough. Tina Krause, CBS News.
The State Department is warning U.S. citizens to rethink traveling to parts of China as they could risk being separated from family members if they test positive for COVID-19. China has now softened its controversial policy that forced parents who didn't have the virus to hand over their children to mass quarantine centers.
And after this break, Michael Cuddy will have your sports.
On the top of the world, a great migration unfolds. Thousands of caribou journey to one special place. This is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, an Alaskan sanctuary bursting with life. But in an ever-changing world, can these Ice Age creatures survive?
Wednesday night at 8 on WNMU-TV.
Hi there and welcome back. Minnesota State Mankato was unable to win its first national championship over the weekend, losing to Denver, but goaltender Dryden McKay, in his third year as a top 10 finalist for the Hobie Baker Award, finally won it as the best player in college hockey. McKay was a fantastic goaltender this year who I got to witness get thwapped by the Wildcats in person before the Mavericks thwapped back harder the next day. McKay might have been the best player in college hockey, but he was not the best goalie, as Northeastern's Devin Levi won the Mike Richter Award as college's best goaltender. And the Australian Grand Prix was yesterday. The live event aired here at 1 a.m., but it was an early morning. It was an early morning for us, but it was all sunny down under for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc to get their second win of the season. Max Verstappen, Leclerc's biggest title rival, failed to finish his second of 3 races, bringing into question his title hopes. Sergio Perez got his first podium since the Mexican Grand Prix of last season, as George Russell got his first podium in a Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton came in 4th, with McLaren finally having a good weekend as Lando Norris and Aussie Daniel Ricciardo took 5th and 6th on the weekend respectively. Ferrari's other driver, Carlos Sainz, was unable to finish the race. Personally, one of the most impressive feats from yesterday's race was Alex Albon getting 10th place in a Williams. Albon had to pit for the final straight after racing the entire race on the tires he started on, and he only kept getting faster. Albon had to pit to meet FIA requirements. And taking a quick look at the final NBA playoff scenarios, Phoenix and Memphis have taken the top 2 seeds of the West, with Miami and Boston taking those spots in the East. The Bucks will take on the Bulls, whereas the 76ers will get a rematch against the Toronto Raptors, but this time the Raptors won't have Kawhi Leonard. And in the West, the Golden State Warriors will welcome the Denver Nuggets, and the Dallas Mavericks will host the Utah Jazz. The Minnesota Timberwolves will welcome the Los Angeles Clippers for the play-in game, and the loser of that game will play the winner between the New Orleans Pelicans and San Antonio Spurs. In the East, the Brooklyn Nets can clinch the 7th seed by beating the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the loser of that game can get the 8th seed by beating the winner between the Atlanta Hawks and Charlotte Hornets. Now, I hear you got a couple extra stories for us today. Caden, care to tell us a little bit about them?
Indeed I do, Michael. Well, there's smart, and then there's Kmart smart. Americans who have grown used to that slogan will be disappointed to hear that the once retail giant Kmart is nearing extinction. In a world dominated by Targets, Walmarts, and Amazons, Kmart has been reduced to just 3 stores in the continental U.S. Kmart, what used to be a store that had a little bit of everything, now struggles to compete with Walmart's lower prices and Target's trendier offerings. We bid farewell to what was once a staple in American shopping. And continuing on, Twitter's largest shareholder, billionaire Elon Musk, has denied a seat with the company's board of directors. Recent filings revealed that Musk owned slightly more than 9% of the company's stock. Twitter offered him a seat with the condition that he would not purchase more than 14.9% of the company's outstanding stock. Now that Elon has refused the seat, he is free to accumulate more of Twitter's stock if he so wishes. So, Michael, you ever shop at Kmart?
All the time when I was really little. There's one not too far from where I grew up, but it's been an empty building for almost 2 decades now, I think. I was like 4 or 5 when it closed down.
Yeah, I definitely think Kmart is following the route of Shopko, and there'll be a lot of empty buildings.
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack as well.
Shack. And that's all the time we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Public Eye News. I'm Michael Cudahy.
And I'm Caden Minus, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
The preceding program was produced by WNMU-TV, Northern Michigan University Public Television, in studios located in Elizabeth and Edgar Hardin Hall.
Fasten your seatbelt. I'm descended from mystery. I didn't know what we were. We're gonna find out.
Watch entire seasons of Finding Your Roots with Passport.
You want a mind-blowing